Hello.
So you're back home?
Yes, yes.
So
I was
how
just for 3 days.
going just for 3 days?
Yeah, and
And
I'm
then
like fireworks. I feel like fireworks. I'm exploding all over, and not in a good way.
right, from what's um, what's changed the trigger threshold?
Um, well, the American elections did their thing for sure. This was a part of. This is a percentage of the whole thing,
Yep.
and I just needed a little spark to go off. And the spark was when it wasn't me in the middle of things, but my dad saying to my mom for the thousandth times, "Don't stop feeding the cat," because our cat has 10 feeding bowls. 10, I'm not exaggerating. You know what
Yep.
I'm
Yep.
talking about.
Mm.
And this is a conversation that I have from time to time, and I try to stay out of it. But she gets very triggered when he says to her, "Stop feeding the cat," because it costs lots of money. It gets thrown out, everything, and the second thing, the cat will go to fat. We will have a diabetic cat, which is more of a problem than a healthy cat.
Yep. Yep.
And well, this time I joined. I joined and I said something, and I really exploded. I don't know. I mean, it's a stupid situation. I shouldn't have reacted, but I couldn't contain myself. And this is the thing. I couldn't contain myself. I was able to watch the situation. I was conscious of what's going on. I saw that I was triggered, and I was triggered by her special words. She said, uh, "Okay, if you don't let me feed the cat, then I'll throw myself out of the window." And this is the type of emotional blackmail that she used to use all her life. So if you do something to me, I will do something to myself and you will be responsible for it. And I was a child. And this
Mm.
is what I listened to all the time. So it was again a trigger, and I was completely aware that this is a trigger, that this is the type of things that trigger me, that I spent my childhood and my youth fearing for her health, um, that something would happen to her. I was fearing for her. She was always sickly, always sickly. Now that she has dementia, she forgot all her sickness. She's very healthy. I mean, in a physical way, but just not mentally.
Mm.
So
So
every time, yeah,
although you saw the connection, you saw where it came from, still it triggered you,
yes,
which
yes,
says that your seeing of it is still, well, it's an intellectual knowing of it.
mm,
And what we need to do is put an adult perspective on the conditioned child that still exists
mm,
there, that still responds to that is still needing to escape those horrible emotions that are
mm.
there. So how do we get it from your head into your body?
What I know now, and I use it from time to time. I didn't use it at the moment when it happened because I wasn't that much aware, is that I need to just stay with my feelings and look what's going on in my body.
Yes, yes.
And I didn't do that at that moment. What I can do now is to try to relive the moment in my head and try to gather what's
Yes,
left from the emotion
yeah.
now in the body
Okay, now
and work
this,
with it.
yeah. So this in the feta work, they say this is taking it to the laboratory to work on, right? And the technique that you use is, I mean, certainly just a fantasy in your head, a memory, reliving it is something, but what you're looking for is something that will generate just the right amount, the Goldilocks amount of emotion.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the techniques in the feta work is to use a sentence that says something like, she shouldn't do that.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is what
And
Pernilla said. Yeah. Yeah.
yes.
She shouldn't have done. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Okay.
if you just want to generate enough juice, enough energy, enough emotion to have something to work with, and that way you can go into the body and look where the sensations are and what they're doing and so on and so on. Now remember, you're not trying to fix something. That will happen in the
Mm.
background, but the intention is just to see details of that sensation in the body, and you'll find that stories will come and go. They'll kind of pass you by, fly through, um, making various amounts of impact. And you may, in fact, have more memories about that time. Um, and of course, if that happens, then that will also generate some emotion. Um, but when you feel you've time traveled back into that original conditioning, is when you will kind of bring your current adult perception of what went on back to the young Maya who was hurting as a result of that. And you and she may be even too young, although in your case I suspect that's not the case, to understand adult words. But even so, even if she does understand those, and I think she probably would, because she was a smart girl. Okay, so but those words, it's the tone of voice more than the structure of the language that will have the effect of
Mm.
of her letting go of those old beliefs that she's just been swamped by forever and ever and ever.
Mm.
Yeah, that's the trick. Yeah. Now, even because it's especially if you're tired from the flight and all that kind of stuff, we get more easily triggered when we're tired or if we're sick, um, for sure. So that in that case, it's really a great way to do it is to take it back to the lab and have a look at it like that again. Yeah.
Mm.
And although
There is one.
expectations might turn up, that who knows what will happen. So if they do, you just go, okay, that's an expectation. Might or might not be right. We'll
Mm.
see. We will see. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, no, no. I cut you off. Sorry. Uh, I There is one little thing in this relationship also. So she complained a lot about her health all the time, all the time. And I I figured out when I'm an adult, now when she tells me, I just want to say I lost this. This is lost. This doesn't occur anymore, and I'm kind of sorry that it doesn't occur anymore. When she so few years ago, let's say, when she started saying that that had some problems, that something hurts or something. I got angry. I got so angry. I couldn't listen to her saying that she hurts because this went on so long, so long. And actually, her medical problems weren't that great, that big.
Yeah.
I
You're
had a spine.
responding to being manipulated?
Actually, yes, I had a spine operation at 37. I had a cancer at 47. My medical problems were objectively much bigger than hers, but she's always complaining and complaining, and I got angry. But this somehow, I don't know why this was lost. This must have resolved itself. I don't know, because
Mm.
I don't get angry anymore. I just hope I'm not thinking, well, she has dementia now and she doesn't know. She cannot read the signals in her body and from the environment. She doesn't read the signals anymore. I hope it's not that I like accepted this. I would like it to be a resolved thing for me
Yes,
somehow.
of course, of
That
course.
I
Yeah,
don't that I don't react because I resolved it.
yeah. Until you resolve it, it'll keep showing up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But now it doesn't. So
Yes.
I know I don't know where it's going.
I'd say yes. I'd say that that's it's been seen through or something. Yeah. But of course,
Yeah,
we can't know with any of this stuff because it might be a lot. It might come back in the future sometime, or if it does come back, it'll very likely be a variation on it.
mm,
You know, so these things are well and truly ingrained, and you know, when we don't use them anymore, they do atrophy, but they don't necessarily go right away. They kind of, it's like the brain says, "I'll just keep a backup in case you ever want to go back to it." It's kind of a
yeah,
strange thing, yeah.
yeah. But thank you for helping me connect two things. I mean, I went to the group because I didn't know how to work alone anymore. And this is just a moment like this when you said, if you think she shouldn't have said that, I know Pernille said that, but I wasn't capable of connecting these things.
Yeah, the timing wasn't
I
right or
didn't know
something.
how to apply.
Yes.
Yeah. And I got so angry, and I later on I had the feeling I let down my dad, and this is a problem. But he understood. He I don't know. He's really a special person. He is enduring all of this without complaining.
Mm,
Well, he sometimes does, but most
yeah.
of the people would complain much more than he does.
So he's not only watching that happening, he's watching your reaction to it as well. But
Mm.
he's understanding that reaction.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
But even if he wants to help or fix it or something, there's very limited what he can do, isn't it? He's really got to just be a witness. Yeah.
I thought to myself, I reacted now, and this is now even harder for him. And he has it much harder than I do. He's with
Mm.
her all the time, 24/7. And
And
now I come for 3 days and go off.
yeah, yeah,
This wasn't a nice thing to do from me.
yeah. So she's still at home with dementia.
Yes.
Yeah.
He
That
doesn't let her go because I think he doesn't want to let his life go.
yes.
Because if he lets her go, the life will be changed forever and no way back. So he
Yeah.
clings on what's left of his life. And he is almost 80, but he could. go on for at least 10, 15 years healthy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I would say it sounds like he's probably doing a lot of the managing stuff anyway at the
Mm,
moment. So that's not going to
everything.
be so new for him. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, she could go on for a long time with dementia too. Well, my mum did, went for 5 or 6 years.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah.
He
So
says he has a cut. He has a cutoff. He says when she is not able to go to toilet herself, that this would be for him.
that'll be the signal.
He,
Yes.
uh,
Yeah.
and I think,
Yes.
well, she started forgetting us. When I go away, she calls me. She tells to my dad, "Where's your friend?" And she told me for him when he was away for a few days when we were there for longer. Uh, she also said, "Where's your friend? When does he come back?" So she forgets about. She forgets the. She forgets the story about us. What are our names? What do we do? Where do we come from? She doesn't know anything about us. But when we are standing in front of her, she recognizes the emotions that she has with us. I see that she knows the relation she has. She doesn't know. Sometimes she might not know if I'm her daughter or her mom or who, but she only knows that she has some kind of emotional connection to me and a strong one.
Mm.
So she doesn't have any stories. She's losing the stories, and we are watching her losing the stories. And I ask myself, well, isn't this what I'm striving for? Not having the stories.
Mm.
Oh,
There's a lady called Bettina Witchner. I'm not exactly sure of her last name, but yeah, she's come to a couple of the psychotherapy groups, and she's actually doing a PhD on the um, similarities. I'm not exactly sure how she phrases it, but essentially the similarities between dementia and waking up, and she sees a lot of crossover. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I was a bit puzzled. Do I want this?
The difference in attitude, it's a really funny one, you know. Like somebody once said to me, and it seemed to be true. I don't know how actually true it is statistically, but it seemed to be like those people that were really nice all their life, when they get dementia, often become horrible people. And those people that were really horrible all their life will often become nice people when they've got dementia. You know, it's like their
Yeah,
whatever their true self shows through when they haven't got filters anymore. Yeah.
I'm watching my mom, and I would say maybe yes, but only if you didn't know them well,
Yes, yeah, of
because
course. Yeah.
she was very nice to other people. She was very nice to people she didn't know well, but she was very at home. Well, she was extremely traumatized, and I know that. And this is, I know a part of it I can understand now. I can understand a part of it, not whole, not the whole of it.
Yeah.
I still have to work on it. Okay. She was very authoritarian. She was a boss at work. She was a boss at home. Uh, so, well, she was a manager for of construction sites when she was 20, and so she had like 100 men
Yeah, yeah,
reporting to
pushing big men around. Yeah,
her. So now it's my guess she has frontotemporal dementia, which means she's not aware of her deficits. Uh, Other types of dementia might be aware of their deficits, or sometimes are aware that something's wrong. She doesn't. She has no idea. She is very authoritarian. So with dementia, she expects all of us to stand stand up and just to listen to her, which is, I mean, a funny situation,
Yeah.
or else.
I had the feeling that knowing that something's wrong was just a bit at the beginning, not the very, very beginning, but the beginning of the disability stage of doing
Yes,
it when we're in and out of it, in and out of it, and we know there's something not right. But once it takes a full hold, yeah, it's like there isn't a self there anymore. There is
yes,
really just direct experiencing. Yeah.
yes.
I used to go and
And
visit my mum. Sorry.
commenting on direct experience all the time.
Yes, yeah, yeah. I used to visit my mum, oh, 3 times a week, I suppose, for an hour or so, and we didn't even talk. We just sat beside each other, and I held her hand, and she held my hand, and she just beamed. She just grinned and beamed the whole time. She just loved that, and we didn't say a word. There was no.
Mm.
When we were talking, it was just so difficult, and it was so meaningless as well. It's like we were just talking for the sake of talking. And when we just sat there like that, she just loved it. It was great, and I did too. It was really really nice. Yeah. I was closer to her then than I had been any time before in all my life. Yeah.
I started a ritual with her now. I'm giving her a bath. So I'm flying once a week, 2,000 kilometers to give her a bath, among other things. And this is we have a difficult relationship, as you can see from everything else I say. It was really difficult. But now she's like a child, and I'm giving her a bath, and this is a time of bonding for some reason.
Yes.
She enjoys it, and I feel like this is the first time I feel we have a pure enjoyment together.
Yes.
Because all else in our life together, was somehow a struggle. She wanting something from me, controlling me,
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
wanting to break away and not having strength to do it. So I'm now resenting and all the things like this is a pure thing, and I'm feeling that I'm enjoying giving something to someone and not asking if the someone will do
Yes.
anything from me. I
No,
enjoy
not
doing
conditional.
it.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And for me too, I also saw. It was like she was a young child, and I saw the
Yeah.
innocence. I saw the innocence of all of the conditioning that caused her to be the way she was when I was young and so
Yes.
on. So there was
Yes.
forgiveness. There was forgiveness in recognizing the
Yes.
innocence. Yeah.
Yes. This little child that suffered so much, she suffered terribly, horribly. This
Yeah.
is
I mean,
weird.
we no matter how hard we think we had it, they had it a lot harder, that older generation. And
Mm,
every generation before them, it was harder and harder and harder. We got it so easy compared to the way they had it.
yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
Or I think the relationship is better because it's on my conditions now. I don't know.
Well, as she loses the stories, she might stop bossing people around too.
Yeah. But no, no, this is really, I have the feeling that this is pure. This giving a bath is a pure moment.
Yes, yes, yes. It's the kind of connection we could only wish that we had as children with our
Yes.
parents. Yeah.
And I never thought I would enjoy anything with her anymore because I didn't enjoy it before. And
Yeah.
I thought, what do we have to enjoy now that she is not here anymore?
Mm.
But lo and behold,
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. I certainly don't want to reduce your degree of presence when you're with her and bathing her, but it occurs to me that if part of the time that you were doing that, you applied your conscious mind to, I don't know what the right word is, repairing, not repairing, doing something with the little you and her
Mm-hmm.
relationship, some conscious massaging of that relationship, just looking at, yeah, um, something.
Okay.
Just for a
Okay.
moment, yeah, not for the whole time, of course, just for a moment to just bring your mind to that forgiveness, acceptance. It's 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 like an inversion of what went on then.
Yes.
Right now, you're the adult and she's the child. The other way around, so the way it was when you were young. Yeah,
In a week, if I remember.
yeah.
Or
Well, it'll
something.
happen or not. That's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And both both. I was going to say, funny enough, it's not. It's not. I don't know why I think funny. It's not funny. Um, but she is probably your most active trigger, and so consequently, this is just absolutely perfect timing in your life, in your journey, and so on. Just couldn't be better. Serendipitous, that this
Mm.
is there. I did a lot of work with my dad after he died, and it's kind of a bit. Well, it wasn't going to happen when he was alive because he wouldn't even talk about anything like this. But yeah, it's great that you can do that while she's still alive, while you can still touch
Mm.
her. Yeah, that's
Mm.
brilliant. Yeah.
And she's not that much of a threat to me and
Mm. Yeah, she's just a little
being
girl.
controlled.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully, hopefully, hopefully. Otherwise, I just so often I think of a moment, if you know the moment when Todd said about how he came to the Liberation Unleashed. He came to the forum, and there was a woman who decided to take him as a guide.
Yeah, oh, Stacy. Yeah.
And yeah, and she said, I picked you because I had the feeling that you were just on a verge and you needed just a small amount of work. And he said, and 6 months later we were still back at the square one. And this is my fear, and I think so often about it. And I fear about losing all these moments and not doing the right thing, not being successful.
That's a
Maybe a
different
little
thing.
fear.
Yeah, it's a different thing. Yeah, Todd got totally tied up in the doubts at one stage, and Stacy just threw her hands up and said, yeah. So I got a hold of
I
him then,
hope it
and
does.
and we went through the doubts. We got through that. Yeah.
Okay. I hope it doesn't happen to me. That's why I'm saying there's
You
always
can't
good moments.
compare anybody to anybody. Everybody's different. Yeah. No, you're zooming through. You're flying. Oof. You're jet propelled. You
Hopefully.
are. Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
This was a funny story for me, and how he talks about it. It's really funny. He's a funny guy.
Yeah, we all just need that right sentence, that right, whatever, it's a just and then chunk. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Oh, you're welcome. But I've never heard your waking up story, Tyler. Are you okay to talk about that?
I don't I don't really have anything special to say about it.
It was so ordinary, eh?
It's yeah, nothing dramatic.
Was that a spontaneous thing, or did you go through Liberation Unleashed, or how did it happen for you?
Um, I read a lot of books and watched a lot of videos. Then at some point I just stopped doing that. Then I had a few weeks period of time where I just didn't do anything, where I didn't have to work, and I just spent all my time not doing anything. And then it was definitely gradual. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, whether it's gradual or whether it even if there's a big epiphany, there's generally a really gradual lead up to that. And sometimes that gradual is so gradual that it's not noticed. There's because the moments are short and it's interesting if there are those moments that where we might call awake. It's often that there is just direct experiencing happening in those moments, and they don't get into memory. You have to think about something to put it into memory. So we miss them a lot, and then next thing you know, you go, oh yeah, this is really different to the way it used to be. Just, yeah,
I think I think a lot of people have small epiphany after small epiphany.
yeah,
Or when they happen they can seem pretty big. There's a lot. And
yeah,
then like going more meta until it like
yeah, something, yeah, over the
you have an
line.
epiphany about epiphanies. And then none of it makes sense anymore. I don't know.
And I suspect that the context of seeking is very much involved as well. I mean, a lot of people who don't seek may have those epiphanies, but that's just a different kind of experience for them. There's no context. Um, and people who have a spontaneous awakening in the old days, I mean, not that long ago, really, a lot of those people rushed off to a psychiatrist or whatever and got brought back down from that. They got centered and grounded and got purpose in life again from that.
Yeah, wild stuff.
Mm. So, I mean, what started you on this thing? I mean, you just somewhere out of the blue, you got the idea to start reading those kind of books or watching those kind of YouTube videos? Were your parents left-wing hippies that got you into this kind of stuff?
No, it was just suffering.
Ah, thank you, suffering. Yeah,
Yeah, and feeling like this can't be it.
yeah. Ah, yeah. Well, you had the weird gene, eh? That's what it sounds like. Yeah.
The what?
The weird gene, the gene that turned you into a weirdo, that kind of made you question this stuff all your life.
Oh yeah, since I was a kid.
Yeah. Yes, I think the common things like I felt like I didn't belong, or I felt like everybody else was different to me, or all that kind of stuff. Even as a young kid, it's there. It's wow, it's amazing. And all the other kids, no, they were just normal. Mm.
Yeah. And then growing up, like weird moments where everything seems like it falls apart and it's really scary.
Yeah, well, especially if you haven't got context for it. Yeah. Ooh. I was talking to somebody a couple of days ago who you're guiding on the forum, and they said you hadn't been around for a while.
Oh, who was it?
Well, I knew you were going to ask that. I've forgotten his name now. I'll have to look.
I was just on the forum today. I didn't see anything.
Oh, okay. Um, I only know his actual name. I don't know his forum name. Well, I don't even know his actual name, but I'll find it. It's on the tip of my tongue, but I can't remember.
Was he American?
Gee. Oh, Chalky.
Oh,
So maybe you haven't got notifications turned on or something.
oh no, I read his last post to me.
Okay, okay. Mm.
Just didn't have questions. He was just saying stuff. I didn't feel the need to reply.
Right. Okay.
But I guess he's come here, so maybe I should reply.
Yeah, yeah. Well, give him the questions or whatever. I made up a set of questions that were kind of the indicators of whether the final questions were appropriate or not. Just to cover a few of the areas and that. Just maybe if you don't give him the final questions, but I suspect that yeah he's there in my estimation from speaking to him. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just ask him if he wants the final questions.
Hmm. How have you been, Ramesh? Haven't spoken to you for ages.
Hello. I think it's been the same.
So still having a lot of those really intense body reactions.
Yeah, actually, especially since yesterday, my body is very activated. Like I can almost hear my heartbeat.
Yeah. And when you say especially since yesterday, was there did you see a trigger?
Yeah,
So is your inclination to turn away from what seems to be the obvious external circumstances that brought it on to what that reflected, what was reflected in you that was behind it or underneath it?
There's a lot of anger and
Say that one again.
there is a lot of anger.
A lot of anger. Yeah. Okay, got it. Yeah. So what was similar in the past to the circumstances that provoked the anger? What aspects of it came from before?
The feeling of freeze, the fear.
Right. Okay. Can you feel that now?
Yeah.
Is the intensity causing your body to vibrate anywhere?
Yeah, it's very intense.
Where do you feel it?
The back, shoulders, throat, head, arms.
Yep. Do you know the classical picture of Atlas with the world on his back?
Yeah,
Does it feel like that for you? Like a weight?
maybe, but the weight feels inside.
Right. Yep. And does it feel like it's almost too heavy to carry? Too much to bear?
In some moments, yeah. Right now, it's relatively okay.
Do you find yourself lost in the suffering to the point where there's no part of you outside of it watching it happen?
Yeah,
What are your thoughts, Tyler? Would you say, Ramesh, that this reaction to the circumstances yesterday that triggered this is something that you've done for a long, long time? Does it happen like this? Did it happen like this when you were really young? Or did it start at a certain time, certain point in your life? Or has it just been forever and ever like this?
I don't have specific memories, but it feels very old.
Hmm. Did any part of you have a commentary about what happened yesterday, saying that it's based on that there was a limited perception or a misperception of something that created it? Was there any commentary part of you saying that this is
Yeah, there was a lot of commentary.
what was it saying about it? What what was the attitude? What was the undertone of the commentary? Was it
Um, Judgmental. Fear.
so the commentator was inside the emotion, not outside it? Wasn't the commentator that was watching it as much as it was the commentator in it? Is that accurate?
I don't know the difference.
Yeah, well, I was just thinking if the commentary was fearful, it just suggests to me that it would that it was One way to look at it might be that it was a first-person commentary, not a third-person commentary. So a third-person commentary is describing what's being seen objectively, whereas the first-person one is feeling it, talking about what I'm feeling.
I can tell you the judgment, and you tell me which is it. Well, I've told you about my grandma being
Yes.
very
Yep.
like stubborn, wanting to go back to her home place here. And when the last time she spoke about it, I gave her a hug and she cried, and my sister called her afterwards and like scaring her about going back, being by herself, and she changed her mind. It's been a while now. I don't know, like I've lost sense of time. But then yesterday, she was telling my mom that she wanna go back to her place again, and I said no. And she was complaining about doesn't really matter, about she feels cold and she likes being here in the living room, that she can open the window and the sun. She loves the sun. And I suggested to get her heater. It's here. But my mom was scared that my dad would complain about the amount of
the cost of the power.
yeah. And my mom, she can't say no to anyone. She wants to please everybody. So she brought her back here yesterday, and the whole situation made me furious with anger.
Did that anger grow out of your helplessness?
Yeah. The thing is, my mom has pain in her legs. She gets very tired easily when she makes any effort, and she has to come to my grandma like 4 or 5 times a day if she lives here. And my grandma can't help herself well. She still can't walk very well, and it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's like this situation doesn't help anyone.
No. She can't see the difficulty that it will be for everybody else, or she just ignores it.
When she
Your
agreed
grandmother.
about staying there, she saw that. She saw and she was convinced, and she was repeating back what we were telling her. And it's like, it's okay, like it's finished. Now she sees the reality. But somehow,
Yep, she still wants to be independent. Mm. Even though she can't be. So she's a bit like a child who wants ice cream, and you say no, and she's kind of okay for a little while, and then the idea occurs to her and she wants it again. And then you say no, and you can't because whatever. It's 10 minutes later, she's back to wanting it again. She's like a little child, isn't she?
Yeah, that's what one of the judgments, a bunch of children.
So you're kind of caught in the middle between your mother and your grandmother?
I feel like I'm curious about everybody.
Hmm.
Like my grandma, she feels like she's not, I don't know if she's not aware or willingly unaware or something. She keeps saying that she does that because she doesn't want to put a burden on my mom, which doesn't make sense. Like,
Yes, because if she goes back, it's a bigger burden.
and my mom and my aunts, they're so gentle with her. They're trying not to upset her, saying yes to everything she does want. And
So where does that leave you? What are you responding to with all of this anger, with the tension that comes with that? You're responding to how could I put it, a situation that it appears that puts you in.
I'm not sure if I'm following.
Sorry, I missed that. You're not sure what?
I'm not sure I follow what you say.
Okay. Well, your grandmother wants one thing. Your mother and your aunt are agreeing with her to just placate her, and it's like you're watching some weird play going on that doesn't make any sense, and yet you can't do anything about it. You're stuck in the middle. You're got to live with the consequences of what they're doing. Maybe. What does it
They
feel
will
like
live
for
with
you?
it.
Yeah. So where's your anger come from? That's what I'm asking. What's the you're responding to something about yourself, even though it's obvious to see what the
Somehow,
circumstances are.
somehow it feels like my fault, even it doesn't make sense. But
Okay, it feels like your fault. Right. Okay, now that's something. Whew. Yeah. Even though it doesn't make sense, you can't see where you are at fault, where you have created this situation, can you?
maybe it's more like I could help somehow, but I'm not helping.
Are you withholding some help that you know will be helpful, or are you unable to find what could be helpful? So when you say you could help, do you know what to do to help?
In my imagination, maybe if I have enough money that I could buy a place that will be in can have a soul in, like,
It will please everybody.
maybe something like that.
Do you really think it would? So if you imagine your perfect place that turned up in a way that you could afford to do it, and you moved everybody in, do you think they'd all be happy? Your grandmother's still going to be saying, I don't want to be a burden. I want to go home. Even if she was in a palace, she wants to be independent, doesn't she? Even though it's not practical, because she can't be, but that's what she wants. So you're helpless, really, there. Do you? Well, let's go back. I'm jumping ahead and telling you what you're thinking. I'm not meaning to do that. Do you imagine in that perfect place that everybody would be happy?
No, maybe, I don't know. But at least if she's unhappy, she would be unhappy about what's real. It's like she has no excuse of complaining about whatever excuses she comes up with.
Can you see that
Because
what's
now
real?
she,
Go on.
because now she's here, she's done what she wants, but she can't complain anymore. Like when my mom asked her about her legs or her what she feels, she would say, "I'm okay, I'm happy," even though she's clearly not happy.
Mm,
So it's like she's running out of excuses now. Like,
yes.
and like, for how long you gonna pretend that it's okay, that you're happy because you're in your place? You were in your place and you were not happy, and you were so depressed and sick that you almost died.
Have you said these things to her?
No, I can't say that.
Too harsh? So you're stuck, aren't you? You can't do anything. Could you imagine in your wildest fantasy that because you can't do anything, the one thing that you can do is accept the situation as it is, not want it to be different? Can you imagine that? I'm not talking about whether you think it can happen, but can you even just imagine that you could somehow find a place to view this where it feels like it's an inevitability that can only be accepted. It can't be changed. Is that a giant stretch of your imagination to get that? Can you actually get it?
I don't know, but it's triggering my body more.
Oh, ouch, sorry. Yeah. So, so what about it? What about that idea triggers your body more?
I don't want to see her suffer again.
But she's suffering because of her stories, and you can't change them, can you?
I mean, she was suffering physically.
The leg is somewhat better than it used to be.
Yeah.
I'm getting that you can see quite clearly that her suffering is not because of her circumstances, although she might single out certain circumstances as a reason for it. That's not what's really causing the suffering. The suffering has to do with her attitude towards her life, or parts of her life, right? Can you see that one clearly?
Yeah, I can see the suffering, but also there's pain.
Yep. So when you see somebody else in pain, you feel that pain, eh?
And it makes me see this side of me that it feels cruel, and this anger of like you are suffering because if it's your own fault. Like there's part of me that wants to shame and judge, and
Is that the same part of you that would really like to point out that if she were different, she wouldn't suffer? So that is that judgment about the unnecessary nature of the suffering that she's got going, the pain that she experiences?
I'm not sure.
It's interesting how you feel responsible. Yet I can't see any way that you are responsible. Well, I do accept that you feel responsible. Is it a cultural thing for you that extended family um, is still the normal, and that there is how can I put it, duty? There is a duty to look after each other all the way through life. I mean, in my culture, we put old people in nursing homes and we just go visit them a couple of times a week. Is that the normal for you in your culture, or is it normally that you look after the old people until they die at home?
Yeah, we look after them.
Yep. So what the reason I ask that is because I imagine, because it's a cultural thing like that, it comes with a whole lot of duty, a whole lot of so-called responsibility to do these things. So because your grandmother would be the matriarch, if you like, it's normal for her to have demands and to expect that satisfaction from other people. Maybe would that be the normal? Are all grandmothers bossy?
Some are.
Yeah. So I guess what I'm asking you is it has it fallen on you really to be the one who has to look after everybody, make everybody happy?
No, that doesn't come to my mind.
Hmm.
I don't mind taking care of her. That
No,
doesn't,
of course, no,
not an issue.
yeah, yeah. But when she's unhappy because of the things that she focuses on, that gets an anger response from you. Is that right?
It's like she's not able to receive our care, our love, and maybe the guilt part is that I feel like I can't love her enough.
Just be a bit more specific about that. I get that you have great love for her. Is it a case of being able to show her that love that you can't do enough, or is it that you don't actually feel it? Or do you feel conflicting? I mean, we can hold conflicting things at the same time. We can love and dislike at the same time. We can whatever love and hate at the same time. So, is it that you
Yeah,
really don't feel enough love for her? I think you feel a lot of love for her. From what I've heard you say and your tone of voice and everything, I get that you have a great love for your grandmother. But that's not
Oh,
enough, eh?
yesterday I felt hate.
You did what yesterday?
I felt hate.
You felt hate, yeah. Okay. So do you get that you can feel hate and feel love both? Not one doesn't drive the other out necessarily.
Yeah.
So of course after you felt hate, no doubt you then felt guilty about that. I'm guessing. I'm not saying you did, but I'm guessing that you did.
Yeah, it's like a conflict that doesn't or can't be resolved. Or,
When you felt hate, was there a story there as well that makes you a bad person?
maybe the spiritual ego,
Oh,
not
okay.
accepting it enough.
Yeah, yeah. You think she should be above that by now? Mm. But it is an important point. You know that so hate can appear. I mean, hate's a really strong word, but I mean, but some version of that, whatever, it doesn't matter. That can appear, and it says nothing about you as a person. What it says is that there are circumstances that triggered this feeling for you. And so objectively, it's just, it means nothing. It's just there it is. So it's something to look at, but doesn't mean anything about who you are or what you are. That's another made up story. If you take it that what we are animals that respond to whatever's going on. So biologically, we're not much different to a robot in that sense that we have certain sense organs and thinking, and we respond to those things. And we respond in a way that we've been trained to respond to them. And that's it. It's just a biological response thing that happens. So, and we happen to call it hate. And if we see it like that, it means very little. It's just something that's happened there, and we can be curious as to what triggered it, but it doesn't mean anything about us. We don't need to feel guilty about that. We don't need to feel bad about that. It's just something that's there. And it's probably perfectly reasonable if you're in a corner and you can't move because everything's got you trapped. It's a version of anger, I guess, isn't it? Do you think?
Yeah, I think because that's my dad's response,
Okay.
and I
Yeah,
hate
yeah, yeah,
having
yeah.
his response
Yeah. That's a big one, isn't it? Yeah.
because that was my dad's response to me when I would be stubborn or feeling sick or whatever. And he would express that, and he would insult me or whatever. I don't want to do the same for her, but at the same time, it's like I don't want to feel it also.
Mm, mm, yeah. So would it be accurate to say that you did to you what once upon a time your dad would have done to you? Did you take your dad's role and do it to yourself?
I guess so. Also, I've seen the self-directed hate is almost as it's like an anger response to hurt someone. I don't know if
Mm.
that makes sense.
Yep, yep.
It's like wanting you to feel to someone to feel responsible
Yep, yep.
for how I feel.
I get the impression of intense frustration, and that's one that we frequently will turn on ourselves with. It kind of sits right up there underneath anger, but very close to anger. It turns into anger easily. I've seen people in my life, I've had a couple of incidences where I've seen people so frustrated that they hurt themselves. I once knew a young boy that used to bite himself, and he would do it really hard too. And I've seen somebody else slap themselves just because they got so frustrated and they couldn't let it out. There was nowhere to direct it outwardly, so they turned it in on themselves. And although you're not physically doing that to yourself, you are you are doing it to yourself. Yeah.
Is
What's
that
your
why I'm angry?
thinking anger is an expression of that?
I mean, um, about my grandma as like a projection, like she might, like when I feel upset with my dad, part of me wants to um, make him feel responsible or make him feel to harm him essentially.
Hmm.
I used to say I will never have children, and I feel like life gave me something more difficult. My grandma.
In a lot of ways, it's not any different to having a child. Yeah.
I think also maybe the guilt about wanting to leave.
Yep. What would happen if you left?
I don't know, but brings up sadness.
Can you see what the sadness is about?
Like abandoning.
Yep. So if we turn that around and go the other way from abandoning to connection, having a solid connection, does that exist for you? I don't mean intellectually, I mean emotionally. Do you feel connected? Do you feel understood and accepted by mum and grandma? I know you don't by dad.
It feels more that I'm not accepting them.
You're not accepting them. Okay. Oh, that's the other way around. Yeah. So that's where the guilt is.
What would you suggest me to do or not do?
What can you do? What are your options?
I don't mean something specific.
Yeah. Well,
Like
I
maybe a
think,
perspective.
hmm, yeah, I think that's a good one. That's a big one. Yeah. We're we're doing what we can do by examining what goes on. So you say you feel like you don't accept them, which with it, I wouldn't dispute that you feel that way, but I wonder what would it be to accept them? How would things be different for you if you did accept them? Or do you do accept them, but there's some caveat hanging around. There's some condition that you would like to be different.
I think there's a expectation, like I don't want to feel angry at them.
So to not feel angry at them, do they have to change or do you have to change?
Me, I suppose.
Yeah. So would you go as far as to say that your anger's not really about them, they just triggering something that's in you anyway? Or is that too big a step?
I I can see that to some degree, but I'm still like uh, in the story. I'm still like I can't perceive it differently.
Hmm.
But yeah, definitely the intensity of the emotion um, is not inherent to the situation. I can
Hmm.
see that.
Hmm. Could you see that the conditions that are inherent in the situation trigger a response in you because when that response when you started to respond like that with anger, etc., um, there were similar conditions, similar circumstances, and it's a similarity in the circumstances from when you first developed that kind of response to the circumstances now that triggers it. Is that something you can see? Does it feel like you said it feels like it's old? It comes from before.
Do you mean like the theme of?
Yeah, the theme would be a way to put it, yeah. It's the same theme.
It feels like a response to my mom being passive.
Yeah. So how old were you, roughly? How old were you? What part of your life were you in when you had first had the idea of her being passive? When did you recognize that?
I can't really remember, but maybe as a kid, like
Yeah, yeah, somewhere back there. That's all we need to know. Somewhere back there, yeah, yeah, yeah. And ever since then, it's kind of evolved. It's grown into a greater intensity. I mean, when you first recognized it, you probably weren't angry about it. You were probably just critical of it. But somehow that developed into anger over time.
I think at the time it was more helplessness,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
fear. And I remember trying to intervene as a kid, and I couldn't change anything.
No, it didn't end well, I'll bet. Yeah. So helplessness, and of course, from helplessness, we can feel guilty about that too, eh? I should be able to do something and I can't.
I didn't see that connection before.
Did you experience a change in your body when you saw that connection?
I feel
How are you
like I want to
feeling?
scream my head off.
Yeah.
I was processing the anger with my friend, and I remember saying that I don't feel that I'm justified to feel it. And no, it makes fucking sense.
Hmm. I would hope that it takes away the guilt. It's much more an objective description and not a moral thing. As you say, it makes sense. So it puts it in a different perspective, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So
It feels suddenly that I can own it.
now it's integration time. It's a case of let everything settle down and taking a new position if that's what's going to happen, and just watch, just see what happens.
Thank you, Vince.
I'd like to take that pain out of your head for you if I could. Scott and Claudia, we I don't know. I mean, I'm quite happy. I'm quite okay with people coming late and leaving early, but I just wanted to mention that you guys got here almost exactly an hour after we started, so maybe you missed the time change that happened a week ago or something. Yeah, you're muted. Yeah, good to see you here, Claudia.
Hi. Yeah, I did definitely miss the time change.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, it's kind of a bit. It like for where Marius is, it's super early for him because we moved back an hour, and yeah, it's so hard to find times that suit everybody. But I'll work on it so that we could be up for another change. But let's see. But anyway, yeah, so how have you been? Good to see you here. I'm really glad you got here.
Yeah, actually made it here. Been good. Been
Right?
good. Yeah. Been trying to be with what is. Emphasis on trying. Yeah. Sometimes better, sometimes not so good.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. You actually can't not be with what is, but I do get what you mean. Yeah.
You can feel the inner defense coming up. You're like, oh, hi, defense. Hi, struggling. And sometimes I could be even with the struggling and just let that happen. It's like a stirring happening and then going. And then other times I'm realizing suddenly, oh, I've been struggling,
Mm.
fighting. It uses so much energy.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it is. It's huge. Huge. Amazing amount of energy gets soaked up in resisting what is, wanting it to be different.
Mm.
Yeah. I read a really interesting article today. Christiana posted about somebody saying, I really try to be present. And the whole article was about how can you not be present? How can you not be in the now? And it's not possible. Can you be not in the now? No matter what you do, you're going to be in the now. No matter what you don't do, you're going to be in the now. Yet it did miss that same thing, that there was that feeling like something wasn't, some distraction was going on. Yeah.
Yeah, and what comes to mind is that we try to grasp now with the thoughts, and then I feel like you can never be in the now.
Yeah, well, it's just not an appropriate now. Put on that way might be better, wouldn't it? Yeah, yeah.
I didn't
But
know that was an
that's good.
inappropriate now.
That's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But grasping it with your thought, that's a good way. I like this. I like the sound of that. Yeah, that's exactly what happens, doesn't it? And that is, it's well, it's jumping into another weird reality, isn't it? Up there in thought land. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm working with. Exactly, trying to be in the now and being okay with what is.
Yeah. Do you find yourself doing much judging, much having an opinion about how you're going?
Oh, of course. Yeah,
And what about,
often.
do you judge the judgment?
Sometimes I judge the judgment of the judgment, and sometimes it just drops. It really depends.
Hmm.
Mm.
How quickly that thought turns up that says, what are you doing? What's going on? What's happening?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, it sounds like what I guess something I look for is that there is movement, that there is, I mean, stupid words like progress, or there is something happening that's moving in the right direction. Total rubbish concepts, all of those, but you get what I mean. It sounds like good things are happening for you. Is that the way you see it too?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Yeah. In ways, yes. It feels like there's less of the grasping, and like I said, I'm there's more awareness of that cycle happening more and more. And then at the same time, there's more impatience. Or maybe there's more awareness of the impatience, who knows?
Sure, yeah, well, that could certainly be the case. Yeah. So when the impatience turns up, do you see it as impatience at the time or only afterwards when you look back on it? Would you describe it as that?
Again, it really depends how I am in the moment. I often catch it quite quick. Yet,
And is that enough to dissolve it when you do catch it? Does it stop by just seeing it?
no, not always.
Sometimes, but not other times.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, sometimes it remains, and I'm like, okay, but what am I supposed to do?
Well, what you're supposed to do is not supposed to do anything. Uh,
That's it.
but yeah, okay. So are you curious about why it happens sometimes and not other times? Is there
Um,
curiosity about that? Why does it not happen sometimes when it does happen other times?
yeah, there is curiosity. There's also an idea why it could be. Um, it's certainly easier when I'm more relaxed than when I'm more in a environment where I feel comfortable. When I travel, I like traveling, but when I feel like my body needs to be aware of danger or something happening, or I need to orient when I need to go outwards, I feel there's more defense mechanism going, and then it's harder. I get lost more because I feel like, yeah, body feels more stressed, I guess.
Is it when other people are around? When you're
That
involved?
depends. It depends. It feels more if I'm feeling comfortable or not with the people
Yeah, got it. Okay.
or the situation. If I feel I'm not threatened. Well, threatened. I mean,
Yeah.
some kind of defense that needs to come up. That is usually silly defense, but sometimes, yeah, like I'm really in danger, but some kind of psychological defense that comes up.
Still danger, I guess, but not a physical danger.
Yeah.
Mm.
Not even a psychological, but the brain comes up with ideas that it could be dangerous.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't know the difference between real danger and imagined danger. That's the way the brain works. Yeah.
Yeah, the body has the same reaction in some ways.
Of course, if it believes the imagined danger, yeah, it's real. So do you feel that very often, that sense of danger?
Not anymore. No, I guess that's what I would call some kind of progress. Is that is less that feels threatened because there's like, yeah, there's less that feels threatened in a way.
Yeah,
Like,
great. Yeah. So
no
what?
need
What?
to defend something.
Hmm. So what's changed to bring that about? Do you think? What comes to mind?
What changed? In many ways, I've seen that it's kind of stories I'm making up about things, and that these stories are not real, or seeing it's other people's stories and it's not affecting me. It's like I got nothing to do with that. So I'm much more relaxed because I know, okay, this person's angry. There's no way there's anything to do with me, or this person is snappy, or and most of the times I'm just like, okay, that's their story, and I can lean back out of that.
That's a big one. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that was huge. Yeah, and I guess those stories that remain where I feel defensive, probably still the ones that need to be looked at.
And they will be. Just because of what you just said. You see that. You see that. Yeah. So as they will present themselves for inspection at the appropriate time.
Yeah, sometimes they're just very hard to grasp, like
Oh, they can be slippery. Yeah.
And what's really underneath. Sometimes you feel like, oh yeah, I got it, and it's not actually what it was. There's something further down.
Yep. But that's a step. See that I got it. It's still a step in the right direction, isn't it? It's still one step closer to. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes we've got to peel off a few different covers to get to it, and we will as it becomes appropriate. Yeah. Good stuff. Yeah. How's things been for you, Scott?
Pretty good. Pretty good. So there was the election.
The election. Yes. Yeah.
So like for the last probably month, maybe longer, we've both been diving into these pro-democracy YouTube channels to try to, in retrospect, I can see it's just trying to give a sense of control, to try to keep that like lack of control feeling away. And I knew that like, what we were doing wasn't really, probably the best thing, for for whatever, but we just did it anyway. We chose to do it, So the election came along, and then election night came along, and I'm like, I don't want to watch this. So I totally medicated. I just got some vodka, got drunk, slept through the election, and woke up the next morning, and I'm like, I just looked at the titles. I didn't look at anything. I'm just okay. He won, so invested in some alternative, reality that I was like, that day I was like, I can't even watch anything. I'm not even gonna look at the news, no videos, nothing, just completely withdrew because it just felt so overwhelming. It's like, thinking back at it now, I'm like, well, I should have just watched it and just, watched my feelings, watched the inside and tried to unpack it. But it just felt so overwhelming that, just decided to avoid it for the next day. And it worked a little bit. Like some of the intensity kind of went down. And that day after that, So this next day we just withdrew. Day after that, we thought, well, now let's watch some late night comedy, right? Because it'll have a political,
Yeah, yeah.
viewpoint, but at least I'll be laughing. That'll take some of the stuff away. So we watched some of that. Even one of those was like starting to get to me. I'm like, hey, let me just push that away. Now today, I'm like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go back in there and I'm just going to relax myself and I'm going to watch like one pro-democracy video and just watch what happens to my insides, and work it that way. But overall, I'm like very pleased. I feel pretty darn good, like it's almost like a relief because now that it's over and the end result is reality. Now all I got to do is just like, okay, well, anything that's associated, that's also reality. I'm not even going to worry about it, So I feel really good about it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure there's different procedures I could use or different ways to look at it, but I'm pretty happy. I'm not all torn up about it, so can't say there's no concerns, but
Well, for sure. Yeah. 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 It's a really interesting one, and it is one of our biggest buttons, I think, because we've been educated to that stuff again. But yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. But I had the thought today. I wonder how many people will wake up because of this. That's a
yeah,
possibility
that's
too.
possible. I guess I don't. Honestly, I don't even know what's happening right now. I don't know what the democracy people are doing, like whether they're freaking out or who
Yeah.
knows.
So
I'll find out.
here's a good one. If I ask you the question from your perspective, from the perspective of the meat suit called Scott, does the Statue of Liberty, is it real?
I can't see it, feel it, or hear it.
Right. So for you, it's something you can just think about, right? At the moment, right? From sitting where you are, doing what you're doing, you can only think about it. So it's a concept,
Yes,
right? So it doesn't actually touch you unless you somehow or other respond to that concept. And then it might feel like it's touching you, but you're really responding to the concept, not to the Statue of Liberty, eh? So all this stuff
agreed.
with Trump, it's still a concept, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. Now, when you hear a knock on your door and they push a Trump Bible through and say you've got to have one of these on display, that's when you can say it's touching you.
Yeah. See, that wouldn't. I just don't want them to cut Medicare and Social Security. You know what I mean? Like that would affect my life. But it's just a concept, and who knows what's going to happen.
Until it happens, that's right. We don't know what's going to happen or when. Yeah.
Yeah, and even just thinking about the different scenarios is just more bullshit. Yeah.
Mm. Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, this is no doubt going to produce some incredible stories.
I'm actually like, part of me is like, it will be fun to watch the shit show that's gonna, ensue. There's gonna be
Absolutely. Yeah,
some type
really
of show. It's
interesting
gonna
times for sure.
right.
Yeah.
It's gonna be fun to watch. I hope. See, I had doubt when I said that. It's gonna be fun to
Yeah,
watch.
yeah. Well,
Maybe.
uh, certainly will be interesting.
So I guess I don't know. It just kind of all rolled out better than I thought. Like I knew that was a possibility, and I thought, what's going to happen if it goes that way? And it turned out, better than I thought. And I think I'll even be able to use it for more meat for growth.
Yeah,
So we'll see.
absolutely. Yeah, that's the best value. I can see lots of good things coming out of it. One of the things that the Democrats, the losers, are going to. I mean, unless I did hear that they're saying that. I often hear that the loser will say, "Oh, we didn't do anything wrong. Everything is the way it should be." But yeah, but the reality is that a lot of the young men in particular that went over to Trump, right? Or a lot of the people that would have voted for the Democrats voted for him because they're feeling abandoned. So, the obvious answer is that we can't do much about the current generation, but we can do something about the upcoming generation. We've got to educate them better. So maybe that will happen as a result of this kind of thing as well. Who knows? Who knows? That's I want to have good stories. That's all.
Yeah, right. Because he wants to eliminate the Department of Education. So
Yeah,
they're good.
yeah,
He wants to put Bibles in all the schools.
yeah. Well, he's
Anyway,
doing that. Apparently in Arizona, they're already doing it. They're already putting Trump Bibles in all
Louisiana.
the schools. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. So there's so much that I could just sit here and spout shit out for like an hour and never stop. But it doesn't matter. It's all the same. It's all the same.
Mm.
And it's behind. It's back there in that place that doesn't exist.
Yep. So it's really early for you, Marius, still?
No, I was referring to the Wednesday meetings. So
Oh, okay.
this is actually perfect.
Oh, good. Good.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well,
while
you
we're on the
also got here an hour after we started, or a little bit more actually, but that's also
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, no worries
Usually,
about it.
yeah, no, I drive my wife to work around 12, and since we put the time back 1 hour,
Oh, it interferes, yeah.
yeah.
So, Vince,
Yeah. Yeah.
the could you give me this meeting and then the one that's for me it's tomorrow afternoon, but I guess for you it's Monday morning. Could you give me those times in your time, and I'll just use a calculator to figure it out?
Sure, yeah,
The
yeah.
meeting.
So I sent out okay, maybe I didn't do that.
Is there another email? Maybe I missed. I didn't look.
I did send out an email today, but I put it on this thing called Substack, which was going to manage all my emails for me and also give everybody a chance to get into chat about it and so on. So I sent them out. So hopefully you got it. Are you on
Okay,
the
I didn't look. I didn't look, so I might have gotten it.
Right. Okay, but then when I come to think of it, I probably didn't put the times. I didn't do the normal one where I put all the links for the times and everything.
Well, I can calculate the time myself. I'll just
Yeah,
ask
yeah,
Gemini.
yeah.
But
I'll send you an email with them anyway. Yeah, yeah.
okay, all right, that'll work. All right, cool.
Right. So is your email start with Scott?
It's SR McKay, SRMCCAY. Here, I'll put it in the chat.
Oh, great. Thanks. Yeah, yeah. And I'll send you. Yeah, I've got it. SRMK. Yep. No worries.
Got it. All right, cool.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, I'm just trying out this new Substack as a way of doing it. If it works, it could be good. But I've had it's taken me 3 goes to actually get it to work because it's a little bit obscure, but it does seem to have a bit of potential for
Is that another social media site or something?
Kind of looks a bit like one, but I don't think it's not social media. Well, I don't think it's social media. But it does have a chat facility, which I've activated. So, but that'll be just people in the group who want to chat about it with each other. That's the point of that one.
Well, I'm going to follow it and see what happens.
Yeah. I don't know whether I'll stay with it or not, but I'll just see how it goes and see how people feel about it. So I've also put a survey on it to just discuss the Monday time of the Monday meeting, and when I get that, if enough people respond to that, I'll do one for the Wednesday meeting and one for the Saturday meeting, just to try and find a better time. But it's so difficult because I thought if I did one at 6 a.m., another one at 4 p.m., and another one at 9 p.m., I'd be covering most of the world. But it seems like I exclude people with every one of them. So maybe there is a time, if maybe the day of the week and the time, it might be better to find a time that suits both Europe and America, uh, and stay with that time, so they'll all be at much the same time of the day, just on different days. I don't know. Anyway, well, I'll see if I can find something out. If everybody responds to that survey, I'll have a bit of. I mean, there's over 300 people on that list. So if I get enough responses, I'll be able to kind of work out what people say about the time.
Yeah, I don't need you to adjust it for me. I just can't make the Wednesday one because it's the middle of the night. The other ones I can make.
Mm.
So I think you kind of are covering the whole world. It's just that on Wednesdays it seems to be like in conflict with both the US and Europe somehow.
Mm.
So
Mm.
on Mondays or Sundays, it seems to be like a good day for the US, and this day seems to be a good day for Europe.
Right. Right. Yeah. So maybe the Wednesday one is the one that'll shift. We'll see if we can find a better time for everybody. Mm.
I didn't receive that email, by the way, Vince. So
Oh, you didn't get the Substack email?
no,
Okay.
but I usually have received your email, so I don't know what happened there.
Okay. Yeah. So I presume you're on my list. So what's your email look like? Start with Marius.
No, it starts with M underscore and then
Yeah.
Laverty.
Yep. Yeah, I have got you on my list. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So it's all right. So I think the second time I tried and failed, it seemed like when I entered all of the emails in, and it wanted to call them free subscribers, I had to put them in separated by a comma, and I did it. I did that. I thought I did that. But anyway, the second time I did it, it looked like even though I put them in, it didn't take it. And then the third time it did, but it said, "Oh, it'll be a moment while it does it." But then it did, and it did say it sent them out to everybody. So I don't know why you would not have got one. Hmm.
Me neither.
Sorry.
Me neither. I didn't get
Okay.
it.
Me
Okay. All
neither.
right. All right. So maybe I'll just dump the Substack thing if that's going to be like that, and go back to the other way of doing it. All right. I'll do an old type list tomorrow.
So this meeting started an hour ago.
It started 2 hours and 20 minutes ago.
I thought it was now, 20 minutes ago.
No.
So I have the old, probably the old schedule.
Yeah, so it actually with the going forward in Australia and going back in Europe and back in America,
Yeah.
in order to keep it at the same time, I moved it forward an hour, which was at 10 p.m. my time. But it seemed like that excluded some people, so I moved it back to 9 p.m. my time. And it's now 11:21 p.m. So yeah, 2 hours and 21 minutes ago was when we actually started. Yeah.
So would we have the final time schedules in our emails or in the YouTube website?
I'll send it out. I'll send a mail out tomorrow. I've got that. Have I got you on that list, Stelios?
I don't know.
Let me just have a quick look. So your email is?
It starts from STVL.
ST Spello?
STVLA, you don't have it?
STV. No, I haven't got it in my list. Okay, yeah, will you just save me looking it up? Will you put it in this chat for me, your email?
Yeah.
I'll add you to that list and send
Thank
out a
you.
thing tomorrow with it. Yeah. Mm.
This week I went to the meeting of my Buddhist Sangha in the real world.
The unreal world. Yeah, sorry.
Well, it is interesting to see how I behave in the real. I went because an ordained woman came to Poland from Australia, and I've heard she was engaged some years ago in Liberation Unleashed. So I only know her by her Buddhist name, Vidyatara. So I don't know if you know her, Vince.
So, what's her name?
Vidyatara. Vidyatara.
Doesn't ring a bell for me.
No.
Yeah.
But she comes to Poland. I think her grandfather was Polish, so
Yep.
mm.
Mm.
And yeah, she was going through Liberation Unleashed, but Triratna is, well, it just works better for her.
Mm.
But we also talked about why I started coming here and how I felt, but there is no free will, really. Just things happening on conditions. And she agreed, and she just said that she just can't talk about it to people there because they wouldn't take it.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, for a lot of people, that kind of thing, they just don't get it. Mm. And some people will respond defensively to it as well. Not just not getting it, but they'll feel threatened by that idea. And that's simply because they don't get it. You people think if there's no free will, that means, well, I think that the opposite of having free will is to be determined. So they might think the opposite of that when you say there's no free will, that you're actually talking about determinism, which is a different thing again. It's also not accurate. Nothing's determined because nothing's fixed. So a lot of those things threaten people because they hook into the opposite.
Well, but how I behaved is that people were going around and talking to each other, and I, after talking to Vidyatara, I went to sit in the corner, and someone even came to me and commented that I'm always hiding.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's true.
So it feels to you like you're hiding?
Yes, it's too much.
Hmm.
And I also thought that this sense of self is my place of hiding.
Oh, absolutely. It's the same kind of thing, isn't it? It's a defense of some kind.
And it's like a very, very soft disassociation.
So what is the value to being invisible?
I think back to this exercise with you know, looking at the mug or listening to sound, and how I am going back and forth between the sound and back to me.
Mm.
Mm. And it's like going back to rest from hearing the sound.
So would you? Yeah, go on.
Coming back to a silent place.
Mm. So do you find interaction with other people to be exhausting?
It's like with the sound that it's not only people, but even interaction with senses.
Mm. So it all uses a lot of energy. So being in the corner by yourself is a recovery thing. You'd feel you're getting a rest, having a relief, a break. Yeah. Would you say that there is more clarity in that, being in the corner, being by yourself, than there is when you're interacting with other people?
I don't think about it in terms of clarity.
Okay. Now, of course, clarity doesn't exist, but the opposite does. You know, the confusion, chaos, whatever it is, that's the opposite of clarity. That's certainly something that we can experience. I presume, so I'm just checking it out, I'm presuming that you feel okay about that. You don't feel apologetic or wrong about sitting in the corner by yourself. You feel fine about that? Yeah.
Yes.
I think it's interesting that you go back to yourself to rest. Because for me, retreating to myself has always taken much more energy than not. But I would do it regardless because it feels safer.
Is there a safety component in it for you, Bianca?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I'm interested from both Tyler and Bianca, what does the danger look like that you're feeling safer about when you're by yourself? If you're not by yourself, what does that danger look like?
It was a not knowing. Because when you go back to the familiar self of what you like and you don't like, and all of the judgments that you know, you can feel, okay, I know this, I'm grounded, it's safe.
Yep, yeah, I get that.
But it's so tiring.
Mm.
What comes up here is what, or a question is what self are we talking about?
Yeah. It's because I wouldn't call it a place with judgments.
Yeah.
Um, like it's
Is it the
it is
old thought
yeah,
bundle?
it is it's more like place without judgments and meanings.
That sounds like the opposite of self to me.
Maybe it's very confusing what people call self. And I just can talk about the sensation of coming back to, well, it's just I am.
Yeah, that's what I heard you say as well, Bianca.
And it is very, yes, it is very restful to this place where I can drop meanings and judgments.
This was actually the last big identification that Tyler helped me drop, is that identification I had with awareness, which I identified as self, if I understand you correctly. That is also a trap.
But there's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong, of course. Nothing is wrong. It was just a big one for me to get over.
Sense of being is quite pleasant.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the bigness in that one is that the whole idea that if there's no little self inside running the show, there must be a big outside self running a show, like awareness or consciousness or whatever. And when we lose that belief, when we recognize that that is also a logical mental conclusion, it's like that's almost the final divorce between you and thought. It's like, okay, well, I no longer believe the logical conclusion because it's thought-based. It looks like you've been relegated to the dungeon there, Dennis. You-
Hey, Vince. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, fine, yeah.
Yeah, no, I came on at just after 12, half 12, thinking it was on, but you've been on for 2.5 hours, so I'm just adjusting to the times. And I might get the time for tomorrow night off you just so I know when it is. But yeah, I'm in the shed. Yeah. Yeah. And don't have much to report. Just still dealing with a lot of anger and grumpiness. I'm watching it how it is damaging relationships, and then I'm hoping they'll recover.
So are you making the connection? I guess you weren't here. You missed the conversation with Ramiz earlier. Um, are you making the connection between the circumstances that seem to provoke that anger and the realization that that anger has really not got anything to do with the circumstances that provoke it, other than the similarity of the circumstances, but that's anger that is already there. It's already in you from somewhere way back when.
Oh yeah, 100%,
Yeah.
Vince. Yeah, that's exactly it. It's anger that's going around looking for a fight everywhere. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, perfectly put. Yeah. And so that's a big one. If you can see that, I mean, you immediately don't get sucked into thinking, well, it's what somebody said or whatever the circumstances were. It's like, okay, yeah, where's that showing? What's that showing me? Where's it pointing to? Yeah.
I describe it to myself as a rebalancing, some sort of a rebalancing, but it
Yep.
is destructive in relationships. And then I see my father in me, and I don't want to end up like that. So the hope is that it's temporary.
Well, when you say you can see your father in you, I certainly know what you mean. Something I've experienced as well. But it's really obvious that you're not actually talking about any kind of. It's not really your father in you. It's you're saying, I don't want to become like my father. I don't want to become like the way I saw my father to be.
Yeah, like a learned behavior, never getting to
Yes.
the root of what's causing or keeping the anger going for years and
Oh,
years.
yeah.
Like it just feels like this whole process has derailed. I mentioned it the last time. It all feels redundant, and the only thing there is just anger.
So have you played with the idea that anger is just the surface expression of something, and that underneath anger is something else, maybe frustration, underneath that is fear, underneath that is terror,
Yeah,
underneath that is shame, underneath that is guilt, etc., that kind of thing. Have you played with those ideas?
yeah, I can feel it now. Like it feels the correct word to say would be hurt.
Say that word again.
To be
Hurt.
hurt.
Hurt. Is that what I heard you say?
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Okay. So how does hurt turn into anger? Just play with the fantasy of that. So there is hurt in whatever form that's in.
It feels like there's a hurt in relation to being, and this is a wide statement, mistreated, in life in various different
Yeah,
ways,
yeah,
whatever.
yeah, yeah. I get it.
And
Yeah,
the reaction to all that is anger as a recovery mechanism or as a rebalancing.
yeah, yeah. I get it. So if you go, it shouldn't be like that. I can kind of feel the edge of anger in that it's wrong. I can kind of feel the anger in that. Which is it a version of that is the connection to the anger from the hurt to the anger?
Yeah, that feels like, you're pointing at it. Yeah.
I mean, for me, a big one was it's not fair. but that didn't seem to bleed into anger. That was more of a victim mentality, I suppose.
Well, the anger is more, it shouldn't be that way, and it's not going to be that way anymore because I'm going to change it. And it's the anger that helps
Yeah, yeah.
change it.
So when you say I'm going to change it, do your fists ball up? Do you feel like punching something?
No, it's more just changing life routines, how I behave in the world. You know, simple things like spending your life working for, for other people to have their lives and do what they do and what they like to do, and you're like, what am I doing all this for? Like I just don't feel like there's anything in it for me.
Mm.
That sort of mental thinking. Like whose
A
life am I living?
suggestion or a thought that comes up here, or a question, Dennis, is could this be about learning to set or being reconditioned to set healthy boundaries in your life?
Yeah, that feels like it's part of it. Yeah, Marius. Yeah,
Yeah, I went through that also.
like even very practical things about how much I'll spend on certain things and people's hobbies, and I think, just where the money we earn or I earn goes, and that I'm, you know, in the past there was probably a quid pro quo around kind of what I got versus what other people got, and now I'm kind of going, this isn't. I'm not happy with it, and I want to readdress and recorrect those sort of boundaries about what we do with our money, what we do with our time. You know, it's what keeps coming up is, whose life are you living anyway? You know,
And when you
and as I
set
try,
new
yeah, as
boundaries,
I
do you
try to
feel like
correct,
you get reactions from other people that are used to you being in one way?
definitely, yeah, like outrage and, you know, yeah, this is the way it's been, and I'm saying, well, it's changing now. Well, you said you'd pay for this and that, and I said, yeah, I know I did, but now I'm not. So, we have to deal with that. It's that sort of readdressing and rebalancing.
Yeah, feels familiar.
And I know there's another part of me that's kind of just let life go with the flow, just leave it as it is, and it's meant to be, and this is all good, and whatever. But there's another part going, no.
Well, I guess it's a big part of it. It was stories you actually buy into, right? So there's going to be stories there around that whole process about learning to set new boundaries and other people's reactions to that. And then I guess the process is seeing what stories come up and what what stories you choose to believe in.
Yeah, there's a lot of resistance to the change. Like the whole world is kind of saying, don't change. This is way too upsetting for everybody. Um, but I think it's happening anyway.
You did say before, I'm going to do it. And you said it in a really firm voice.
To me, it's about fairness and balance and, relationships. It's in the word, like to there's a relationship to relate to, there's a fairness and a balance and it can't all be one way or dysfunctional in some ways. But I don't know if that's separate from the anger, or the anger is fueling the change, or change is bringing the anger up. I think the anger is fueling change. It's a mechanism to get change done.
So you think without the anger, change wouldn't happen?
Don't know. I don't know. No, not necessarily. I mean, change can happen without anger. There's a sense of when there's a lack of control over life or the situation or what's happening, then I get angry.
Mm.
And that wouldn't have been the case for many, many years. So it's a new thing, newish.
So when you say that, I'm immediately catapulted into the idea about control and having control and so on. So you still firmly believe that you've got control and that you need to use that in order to have a certain outcome?
Probably, yeah. Kind of feels like my life has utterly failed and I need to make changes to get life back on track and have some kind of a life.
We did touch on the belief in having control last time I was here the same time as you, Dennis. Have you ever, or have you investigated that further?
No.
Could be valuable. I really recognize it in myself, or I used to, my response to not being in control used to be anger.
Mm. And how would you investigate that, Marius? What advice would you give?
Just investigate places or things in your life that you believe that you have control over, and then drill down to that. Do you actually have control over anything? Do you have control over the way you are, your thoughts, your emotions, the way other people act, circumstances around you?
Yeah, I could see where I don't. What comes up is the one that's sticky, is where I spend money and control how I spend it, and where I spend it and what I spend it on, because that's a key one I want to change. So that's one that I'm having difficulty seeing. I've no control over that.
So play with this one for me for a moment. The way I see control is the ability to consciously carry out something. So all these people that say they've got control usually will admit that sometimes they don't have control. And that seems to me like an oxymoron. If you've got control, if it's actual control, you will always have control. You'll never, it's not random whether, this time I have control and next time I don't have control. It's not control if it's not always available. If it only works sometimes, it's something else, isn't it? Is that
Well,
logical, or am I going
yeah,
down the wrong track?
no, it feels like a spectrum that there's a majority of things we don't control. Um, we don't control the weather, the rotation of the earth. We don't control other people's actions, emotions. We don't control lots of the external world. And then we don't control the blood that flows through our body and how it metabolizes. We don't control the breath. We seem to think we can interfere with it temporarily, but it's do we have control over how we react to situations?
Well, do
So there
you?
seems to be,
Yeah. So if you get up and walk across the room and you don't think about how you're going to place your feet, and then you walk around the coffee table so you don't bump your shins into it, and you're not even aware that you walked around the coffee table unless you stop and look back at what you did. You just automatically went around it instead of bumping into it. But if you look back and say, I had control of that, it's pretty obvious that it's just thoughts coming in after the fact and saying you could have chosen to do it differently. And so the way you did it was a controlled way. But that's a story, isn't it? That's pretty obvious that that's a story.
so to say that another way, then if I get angry with my wife and if I get angry with kids and I get angry with other people, there's no control. It's just what is.
Do you have control over your anger?
It feels like it's always there and it's ready to be used or weaponized if needed.
Do you control when it's used?
No, it feels truer to say it controls when it's used.
When you're happy and you can't stop yourself from smiling, do you control the smile?
No, it's more of noticing the smile.
When you're sad, do you decide to cry? You can try your best
No,
not.
no, I don't. No. But something feels like it has control and it's trying to control.
Do you have control over seeing or not seeing that there's no control?
My my brain is trying to wrap itself around that comment, and I like it wants to say no, but maybe yes. I don't know.
Because everyone's clearly pointing you to something and you're trying to see what they're talking about. But what's the point in trying?
Well, the point for me is I'm sick of feeling miserable and angry, and there's glimpses or memories of better times.
So if you had control, you could just stop that, couldn't you? Or is that just one of the things you don't have control over? So what do you have control over?
But yeah, that was a good point, because it's a desire to have control over my feelings and how I feel, because you want to feel good and happy, and
Yeah.
but it's obvious I don't have control over that.
Hmm. So is there a difference between, oh, kind of a stupid question, this one. Is there a difference between having control and feeling like you have control? Can you see those as two quite different statements? I have
Yeah,
control and I feel like I have control.
yeah, they feel like two separate statements, and the I have control isn't true, but the I feel like I have control is truer.
Yeah, yeah, got that. And
It's like
that's
I can say,
perfect.
I don't have control, but I feel like I do.
Yeah, for sure, yeah. And so that feeling like you've got control, which you have no control over, just incidentally, but that feeling that like you have control is your senses lying to you in a really broad, general way of saying it, right? So that it's like when you go to the magician's show and you see him saw a woman in half, your senses tell you that he's sawing a woman in half, but your head says no, he's not. In the case of feeling like you've got control, the head's not saying that's just an illusion. It's actually buying into the story to a degree. Is it?
Yeah, it's paying it's paying attention to the stories in the head, in the mind. Do this, do that, change this, change that, try this.
Yeah,
It,
yeah,
it,
yeah,
it, it
yeah.
it's following, it's believing your thoughts.
So this is something that comes up from time to time, and it's worth clarifying. If you actually had control and then you lose control, or then you give up control, there's a major shift would happen under those circumstances if that were true. But if the way I see it, the reality is that you never, ever, ever actually had control. There was just this sense of this feeling like you had control, but there was no actual control. So there's nothing changed, nothing lost, except your idea about what goes on. So if you never, ever, ever had control, you're not losing anything. How did things work? If you weren't controlling them, if you only thought you were controlling them, It's like you sit your 3-year-old in the passenger seat in the car and you give him a toy steering wheel to play with while you're driving. Is it a bit like that? We give some part of ourselves the idea that it has control just to keep it occupied or amused, but the reality is you never actually ever had control. So there's no loss. Everything is going to continue exactly the way it always did. Well, kind of. When you come to the realization that the idea that you had control was just that, an idea. Nothing changes. You're not losing anything. The only difference is it becomes conscious. Things will continue to happen the way they always did, which was dependent on circumstances, conditions.
So you can't really get it wrong.
No, you can't.
Get it right. Yeah.
That's
Because there
right. You
is no
can't get
wrong
it
or
right
right.
either. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not just that you don't have control, which is a thing that you don't have, but it's what's control
Mm.
other than the thought of it.
But what will be different, what's a huge, huge thing that will be different when you accept that you have to live for the moment with this sense of control that's there, but it's an illusion. It's not actual control. What you lose with that, when you accept that, is all of the guilt and shame that's there because you're not doing things the way you think you should be doing things.
And blame.
How can you have shame if you've got no control? It's life doing it. It's not you.
And I just want to point out what I just said. Also, that goes for everyone else. So all the blame that you're holding on to.
Yes. Yeah, that's a big one. Nobody else. Everybody. No. Everybody is blameless. Yeah. But it's a lot easier to blame yourself than to blame somebody else sometimes.
Yeah, it feels very paradoxical because the thoughts come in. So you shouldn't work on your relationships, and then another thought. Well,
Yeah, yeah,
well,
yeah.
you don't think they you'll automatically work on them.
Yeah.
The
Well,
thoughts get in the way.
it is worth mentioning. A lot of people get pretty afraid that they're going to get into a nihilistic state, um, or even a narcissistic state, and if they do happen, it's because it's an incomplete process that's happened. There's more to go, but essentially, that's not human nature to be narcissistic or nihilistic.
I went through a period of nihilism when I realized I don't have any control.
So
It was a process.
what we've talked now for 10 minutes, and there's been some pointing and some conversation, but I don't know if there's anything that's changed in the sense that I don't, or I realize I don't have control or not. I mean, I don't. I don't know that that's had any effect here.
Yeah. Well, sometimes integration takes a while, but and sometimes it's you haven't hit the mark. So we'll keep poking that bear until we do, eh?
What can happen is that have sparked something, a type of life conditioning you in a way where this will lead to looking for this, looking for control in life circumstances. That may happen or it may not.
But Dennis, you see how before you were thinking that you should try to fix your relationships and everything. So that's what you were gonna do. And then you hear us talking about how there's no control. So you make the logical conclusion that none of that is in my control anyway. So I don't have to do anything. So I shouldn't work on fixing my relationships. But why do all of the decisions that you make have to come from these conclusions about what you think you should or shouldn't be doing? Why don't you just do what you want?
Yeah, it doesn't really matter what I say or think now. They're just thoughts. And whatever happens in relationship will happen. There is that desire to make things better, but again, that's just a whether is it a thought?
No, it's more than thought.
But I think what
Yeah,
Tyler is pointing to here is that you will still keep doing what you're doing, but the golden nugget here is to stop blaming or shaming or being angry for things that happen, because if you actually accept that what is what is, and it was nothing personal, it didn't happen to you. So you're not trying to kind of say that because I don't have any free will, I'm not going to do this or that. You will still act as you have always acted, but there's nothing wrong with the way you're acting or not acting.
yeah. What's coming up though is it feels like, well, I was always this nice guy, and now I'm being a prick. Uh,
Well, if that's the case, you were probably always a prick underneath. You're just hiding it with the nice guy act.
yeah, this is the balance thing again. There was an imbalance of I don't know, life force, just something that can be anything from nice to a prick and everything in between.
Yeah,
And some
of
of it was
course.
stress.
Yeah.
But that's the way it was meant to be, and this is the way it's meant to be now. And
I think what I
it has
mean
come.
is stop trying to navigate a mental map to figure out what you're supposed to do.
And practically, what does that mean in the moment? Stop believing your thoughts.
No, there's nothing. There's no actionable step. You can't stop believing your thoughts. It's not a thing you can do. You don't control that.
There's a bit of relief in that.
And something that some people don't get as a seeker is that personality persists. You know, your human nature is gonna keep on doing what it does. But a lot of those things will be done for a different reason, or the apparent reason will change.
Yeah, but you say that like there's something else which you haven't mentioned, and that piece to me is just, well, what's that?
Well, I don't know. What Tyler was saying to you is that you'll continue to work on your relationships, but how you do that will probably slightly change. You're not going to give up on it. You're not going to go, I don't care. You're not going to be the nihilist who
But
says
you
it
might,
doesn't matter. Sorry?
but you might, and you might give up on your relationship, and you might end your relationships. You might.
Could do. Yeah, everything's possible. Yeah.
Yeah, so it is really back to control and feeling like as long as I think I have control, I'll try to do things.
And when you accept that you don't have control, you will still try to do things. Or it will appear that way, but the trying will be different.
I'm coming back to the thought when I first learned about this idea of control, and I think it was potty training.
Yes. Yeah, of course, of course. Yeah, that's
Yes,
about it. Yeah.
you control your sphincter.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't. So
If you don't, you get into trouble.
yeah, well, I remember it's not trouble, but I remember being proud or
Doing it
being
right. Yeah.
ashamed.
Mm.
It's just like a skill of using a tool. A tool being my sphincter in this case.
But the reality is that in spite of seeming to exercise conscious control over sphincter muscles, we are conditioned to not let it go until we're sitting on the potty. But we are taught at the same time that, oh, you're a good person, you've got control. That's partly where
Whereas
the illusion of control comes from. Yeah.
yeah, it's the conditioning of being in a bathroom and using a toilet that creates the conditions to go, not
Yeah. And it's triggers again too. Like we've trained our dog to go down to the go down the stairs outside and go onto the grass. Well, it goes onto the grass automatically, but we have to say, go and do a wee, and the dog will go down the stairs and do a wee. Now, is it have control or is
But
it just being triggered by circumstances?
I think even without this praise and blame, there is pleasure in having a skill. Yes, like when I can move my body skillfully. I remember when I was exercising for a longer period of time, and then I had to catch a bus, and I could run, and oh, it was so nice. I can run so well, like I've never did before. It just felt, oh,
Yep, yeah, definitely.
nice.
Good reward, yeah. Feel good.
Dennis,
yeah.
you see how a toddler that shits his pants is blameless because he has no control over whether he's able to control his sphincter yet or not.
I feel like I want to say it's not that he's blameless. It's that but there that doesn't even come into it for him. He's just whatever's happening is happening.
You wouldn't even begin to fault the kid, would you?
No, they haven't been, as Bianca said, trained or skilled into knowing what to do. You know, but no, you wouldn't blame them when they're young.
Yeah, the conditioning takes a moment.
That would
You're right.
depend on the person's conditioning, I think, as well. Like, we might have a crazy guy who would actually do that because of his conditioning.
You see how when you get angry and you do something that you regret, and you blame yourself for it.
Yeah,
You're
yeah, that's conditioning.
you're just a toddler who shit his pants. You couldn't have not done the thing that you did.
Yeah, that doesn't feel freeing or anything. It just feels that oh, why shame is coming up.
Do you see that you have a set of up-to-date conditioning? Like, until this very moment, life has conditioned you to be exactly as you are in this moment. And then from here, this is your conditioning, and then life hits you and will hit you in the way that your conditioning is at this moment, and will keep conditioning you based on your up-to-date conditioning.
Yeah, it's like it's able to mold you and remold you and shape you, and you are the accumulation of your conditioning. And if you're not happy with your conditioning, you have that sense of, well, like let's say the person who's homeless and on drugs and is near death, and that's their life and their conditioning. And you're kind of thinking, oh God, it's an awful. You were dealt a dodgy hand there. Other people are dealt a much better hand. Everything in between. Just coming to terms with the hand you were dealt, being happy with it or okay with it.
But you see that being unhappy with your conditioning is part of your conditioning.
Yeah. Yeah, how you behave, respond, how you feel, how you react, your tendency to be glass half full, glass half empty, everything is handed on through your conditioning, whether it's family, environment, or country.
There's not a bit of it that could be any way it isn't.
Do you also see that the image that you have inside of the person that you want to be is also conditioning? Like, if I was like this, I would handle life better, or if I was like this, I would be more successful, or if I was like this, people like me more. So that
Yeah, I
image
do
that
have
you
that.
have, yeah,
Yeah. So you're saying that's my conditioning too.
yes. And the feeling perhaps that you have of wanting to be someone, and like the resistance of being no one.
Yeah, so it feels like I'm absolutely fucked.
It depends if you what lens you use when you see that. But yeah, that is a perspective you can have. Or you could
Yeah, the
try
other
on
side of it
the,
is great.
yeah,
It's hard work being a person.
yes. Imagine if you would be okay with exactly how you are now with your current state of conditioning.
Sort of an okayness with not being okay.
Yeah, like when you try to not believe thoughts, but it doesn't work. So you think, oh shit, I'm not doing it right. And then that conditioning comes from listening to people like Vince talk about stories. And then when you judge yourself, maybe you'll catch yourself judging yourself. And then you'll feel bad about that because you heard Marius say, talk about being perfectly okay with how things are.
And you see that whatever sticks from this conversation is based on your current conditioning.
That's not as clear, Marius.
So if we use the concept of resonating, so what resonates from what has been said here and what doesn't will play a huge role in what sticks and what doesn't. And what resonates because of how your current conditioning is set up.
Yeah, in the wider conversations we have here in these meetings, that's definitely the case. But I think most of this conversation in some way resonates. But there's still a desire to do something with it, which feels futile.
So does
Go
that
away.
that idea of doing something with it hook into control?
It's my conditioning again. The desire to be free of the misbelief that I have control. The expectation is something has to change or be seen through, and if that hasn't happened, how can I make that happen?
Mm. And if that does happen, it's most likely to happen when you're doing something mundane, when you're at work, when you're mowing the lawn, driving the car. When you're not expecting it is when it'll happen, if it happens. It
So I was
certainly
going to go
won't
off with
happen. Go on.
I was going to go off with the idea in my head. Well, okay, so I'm going to surmise it all down into a nice thought. You can't get it right. You can't get it wrong. Relax. Everything's okay. And that's a nice soothing soother to walk away with and to see if that helps. But something maybe saying, look, maybe that's not the right approach either. Check in. That again, me doing something wrong.
Well, if you have no control, you can't do anything wrong or right.
Mm. I think the body gets it quicker. That some part of the body feels like it knows something I don't know.
So you could, in a whimsical way, ask yourself, what is the advantage of continuing to believe that you've got control? Just for the fun of it. Don't do it now, but play with that one later.
Yeah, what do I get out of thinking I have control?
Mm.
The advantage. What do I get out of it? Okay, yeah, I'll do a little bit of pondering on that.
Okay. Well, I'm going to pull the plug because we're like at 3 hours and 40 minutes now. So,
What time is tomorrow, Vince? It's tomorrow night for me. It's the morning for you. I usually come on at 9 at night, but has it changed now? I don't want to miss. Don't want
no,
to come on 2 hours late.
9 at night, my time is tonight. And tomorrow,
No,
well,
morning for you. Monday morning for you.
Monday morning, right? Okay, so I'll get it. So you're in London time
Dublin.
or
Yeah, Dublin, London, all that. Yeah.
same time, right? Okay, so here we are. Let's see. Monday morning at 7 a.m.
It's
and in
8 o'clock
8 p.m.
Sunday.
Yeah,
So 8 o'clock, it's gone back an hour.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
great. Thanks for the pointing.
I just couldn't think of a smart reply to that. So, no, you're welcome. That'll do.
Just you're convinced.
Yeah,
All right.
I'll feel thankful if something happens. We'll see. Yeah. Okay, everybody. Good night.
Good night.
Thanks, bye.
Okay.